Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. I kicked Karen out of my house. After that, teacher won't let me into the classroom? We'll see about that. And after that, am I the jerk for ruining thousands of kids' Halloween and not feeling bad about it? Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen gets kicked out. But where will I go? So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. I kicked Karen out of my house. I, 25 female, have been in a relationship with my husband, Eric, 25 male, for 9 years. We've been married for 3 of these years. When we were 15, his mother had left his father and moved out of the state and had no contact with Eric or his father. I adore his father, so he quickly became a father figure in my life as well. But I had never met his mother. When we were 19, his mother came back into the picture and started dating his father again. Every time I would come over, his mother had prior plans, no matter how far in advance we had planned. My friend suggested that maybe she felt uneasy because I had made a place in the family while she was gone, so I let it go. After this, we upset her because we got engaged and moved into a house that I had inherited from my family. She sent Eric a text the morning of the wedding and said she wasn't coming and that we need to cancel the wedding until we can sympathize and reconcile with her. Eric tried to postpone, but we would have ended up paying for the whole wedding anyways, since it was only a few hours prior to the wedding. So we ended up having the wedding and she didn't show up. We hadn't spoken to my mother-in-law until last year when she showed up in tears because Eric's dad wanted nothing to do with her and she had nowhere else to go. Eric let her in and she started staying with us. She left for a week when we announced our pregnancy, but she came back. It has been nothing but her complaining and telling me what a horrible mother I'm going to be. I stand up for myself and it just makes it worse. 2 months ago, she started making comments about how she wants me to sign over custody of my baby so that she can also make legal decisions. She says it's something all the women in her family do. I absolutely refuse. She went as far as drawing up documents that will allow her legal rights to my kid. She says my baby will live with me, but her and Eric will make all legal decisions regarding my baby, but that she will not take my kid away from me. She keeps forcing the documents on me, so finally I snapped and told her to get out of my house. She left and I started getting notices from her lawyer that she and Eric want to sue me for the house, so that they can put it in their names to prevent me from having temper tantrums like that going forward. I was livid and I lawyered up. Eric says I'm going too far and that he has to side with his mom on this because she means well and he sees where she's coming from and that I'm just being nasty at this point. He even went as far as saying that I am a horrible mother and a horrible human being for not being sympathetic. He also kept referring to me as the Tin Man for having no heart and saying he was worried our baby would be the same as me. I told him that he can leave too. He's the one person I always trusted to be honest with me, so now I'm rethinking my actions. Am I the jerk? Wow, what would you do in this situation? This just sounds like a horrible position to be in. Even I'm afraid of that, Karen. Teacher won't let me into the classroom? We'll see about that. I was in my last year of high school, year 12 in Australia, and back when I was doing school, it was very important that you physically attend class. Back then, I also happened to have severe major depression and a sister who was not good at getting organized/ready to leave on time. We had a teacher at my school who I'd always despised. He didn't encourage independent thought and spent our 70-minute periods writing on the board for us to copy down, just cycling back and erasing and writing continuously. No questions allowed until the last 10 minutes. He was also notorious for not listening to students and had an unspoken rule that he would lock students out of the class for 5 to 10 minutes further when they were late. Let's call him Mr. Richard, for obvious reasons. Well, one morning I was 5 minutes late to his class, first period, 8:45 a.m., due to my sister throwing a tantrum. I knocked on the door and Mr. R. Was the bus late? Apparently, his only valid excuse for running late to class. Me. No, but Mr. R. You can't come in. Shuts the door in my face. Well, after bursting into tears, I decided that his unspoken rule of being left outside the classroom for 5 minutes when one attended late never actually stated one was required to wait outside the door to enter the room when he deigned to let the student in. So I wandered off to the library to find something interesting to read. Apparently, after he opened the door and found me missing, the school had to call my parents and explain they had misplaced me and why. I was eventually found, and Mr. R had the nerve to ask, in front of my parents and the principal, why I, A, hadn't told him the reason I was late, because you didn't let me say so, and B, didn't wait outside the door, because you didn't say so, and I wasn't going to waste valuable learning time that my parents pay for standing and staring at a door. My parents ripped them a new one, and Mr. R didn't lock anyone out of his classroom for at least the next 7 years, so my younger brother tells me. It gave me great pleasure to get one up on such a hard-headed, infuriating teacher. Have you ever had a teacher you just couldn't stand? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know. I've got a co-host I can't stand. Am I the jerk for ruining thousands of kids' Halloween and not feeling bad about it? I live in a large neighborhood, about 90 houses. We are what's considered the rich neighborhood. So our neighborhood has always been a hotspot for trick-or-treaters. We used to get about 700 to 1,000 kids a year. I've always loved getting trick-or-treaters because my kids are teens now and they don't trick-or-treat anymore. But in the last 4 years, it's gotten ridiculous. There's thousands of kids and their parents flooding the streets, people with hay in their rigs carrying kids around, trampling yards, literally candy wrappers everywhere, and the amount of kids walking around by themselves is appalling. People from the neighborhood town of 30,000 people take their kids to my neighborhood. I was annoyed, but I never really did anything about it until 2 years ago. My daughter tripped and broke her arm. We didn't think it was a break, but we wanted to go to the ER anyway to get it checked out. And there were so many people in our neighborhood, we couldn't get out. There were cars everywhere, lining the streets, parked in people's yards. It was horrible. We had to wait until everyone left, about 1 a.m., to go to the hospital. My daughter had to wait in pain for hours. At that point, I was done. I contacted the neighborhood community and we managed to get some folks, cops mostly, to stand there at the gate with a list and only let in certain people. Folks that live here, family members, friends. If you wanted to get in, you had to be close to someone in the neighborhood. It was great. There were only about 300 kids in the neighborhood, and after there was barely any trash. And we're doing it again this year. I recently told my sister what I've done, and she got really angry. When we were kids, we had to trick-or-treat in other neighborhoods because we lived in a trailer park with no other kids. She told me I was a horrible person for ruining thousands of kids' Halloween. But honestly, I'm not too broken up about it. It was a hazard. If there was a fire or an emergency, no one would be able to get in to help. When I was a kid, there was never any cars lining the streets. The residents could get out if they wanted. It was never dangerous. I don't think I'm in the wrong, but I've always respected my sister's opinion. Am I the jerk? Info. There was no one in the cars. They were parked in the middle of the road and in yards, so there was no way for me or an ambulance to get through, unless every driver in the neighborhood at the same time went to their cars and drove out. My daughter was 13 and in that awkward phase where she doesn't want to bother anyone for help and said it didn't hurt that bad. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. Oh, how I love spoiling people's fun. My entitled mother ruins my high school graduation. I graduated high school back in 2010, so I try to remember the best I can. I live in Texas, but lived across the border to Mexico, because to be honest, it's way cheaper to live over there when you're making money here in the US. My high school graduation was in the middle of June, which is the hottest days of the year. Imagine having to dress nicely for a graduation to be done in the middle of a football field on a scorching summer day. I had told my mom about this, and she still wanted to bring my now 4-year-old little brother to the graduation. Since I was busy with all of this, I told her to invite our family to this. This meant my uncles, aunts, and especially my grandparents. She said she did, but since I was busy with the whole graduation and enrolling into college, I believed her. The day came, and she didn't tell a soul about my graduation. She just told me everybody was busy and to deal with it later. Since graduation was going to start in a few minutes, I just had to suck it up. Turns out she didn't tell anyone because she deemed this to be our family matters. After almost 3 hours in the heat, the graduation ended and my mother was nowhere to be seen. My friends were inviting me to their graduation parties and I wanted to get my mom's permission for this, so I called her. Me, "Hey mom, where are you?" Entitled mom, "Oh, I went to get the car early so we can avoid traffic." Me, thinking this is perfect, so I can tell her I'll go hang out with my friends at a graduation party so she can get back. "No, you can't. We need to go back home since they're saying there's cartels fighting each other and it can get ugly, and we need to get home and be safe. I told my friends about this, and sadly, I did not go to any graduation party. When I got into the car, I noticed that there's Chick-fil-A in there, and I'm confused as to why it's there since we didn't get any on our way to my graduation. Oh, your brother was getting fussy because of the heat and hungry, so I took him to Chick-fil-A. I was mad, but maybe she went like after they called my name since they were going in alphabetical order, and I was one of the first ones that got called. That way, she could get a picture of me being handed my diploma, and she said something that to this day, I hate her for it. We left 20 minutes after it started. OMG, did you seriously miss my graduation for this? Me, what the heck? At least did you bring me anything to eat? Entitled Mom. No, here's some leftover chicken tenders from your brother. I assumed she was going to take me to a nice restaurant and I would meet my other family there. Nope, we went straight home and I didn't even eat dinner. I felt so ashamed and unappreciated that I just went to my room, closed my door, turned off my lights, and cried myself to sleep. Yes, I don't hate to admit it. I was an 18-year-old male that cried himself to sleep because his entitled mom made him feel like his life was not worth two craps, in her books or anybody else's in particular, and pushes me into a spiral of depression and self-loathing. Edit. For the record, my dad used to work in Ohio at that time of the year. Unfortunately, that's also the busiest, and he couldn't come to my graduation. When I told him what my mom did, he was upset. So much that they were to the point of divorce, but luckily they didn't. My dad is very level-headed, unlike my mom. Am I the jerk for ruining my ex's career? Early this year, I, male 24, broke up with my ex, Chris. We dated for 2 months after being set up by my sister-in-law. We broke up because Chris refused to miss a party to drive me to the hospital after I had an allergic reaction. Who put strawberries in oatmeal cookies? I ended up calling 999 and spent the night on an IV. My sister-in-law begged me to not tell my family what Chris did, as he is her work bestie. They're both realtors, and didn't want my brother to be mad at him. I agreed because my family would have freaked out. I told my friends who were relieved he was out of my life. We've had nothing to do with each other since breaking up. I have been preparing a thesis project and emailed a couple of art historians and professors for some advice. I connected with an art dealer called Derek, who had some pieces that I could study. He said he would be in my city for work, so we met up for socially distanced coffee. That was our first date, really, as we hit it off amazingly. Our relationship has progressed quickly and seriously. Derek lives 3 hours away and decided that he wants to move here so we can settle together. This is where it gets crazy. Derek's wealthy as a result of a successful career and his family. I didn't realize how wealthy he was until all this kicked off. I met with my brother and sister-in-law for lunch, and sister-in-law excitedly told us that Chris has bagged a mysterious client who was looking at pricey houses. It wasn't until she started to mention specifics that I realized she was talking about Derek. I hadn't told Derek about Chris, except that I had a bad relationship before I met him. I did tell him that my sister-in-law worked for a good agency. Derek came into town last weekend, very excited that his realtor had found him some properties that we could go look at together. We were sitting on the couch, and he kept talking about his realtor, Chris, and I panicked and spilled everything. Derek was horrified and broke his partnership with Chris over email, which horrified me because sister-in-law had gone on about how a sale this big could put them on the map. Derek found another agency and picked a house pretty quickly during the week, and I thought I had gotten away with it until we met for dinner and my parents congratulated Derek on his new home. Sister-in-law asked where it is and obviously recognized the area. She straight up asks Derek if he had been working with her agency. He says he was until he found out what Chris did to me. Cue everyone asking what Chris did to me and my sister-in-law screaming at me for ruining Chris's career. Then my brother screamed at sister-in-law for being friends with Chris. My family plus most friends are on my side, but sister-in-law and her friends and Chris, they think it's petty on my part for ruining this sale when I have my life sorted with a sugar daddy. I feel I'm the jerk because I didn't exactly stop Derek from dropping Chris and shouldn't have mentioned sister-in-law's agency. Derek thinks sister-in-law and Chris are psycho. My brother is in a bad mood about this and is staying at my parents' house. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk or not? Please let us know. No, he did nothing wrong. But that Chris guy sounds like a real... You need to call me whenever you finish these. I do contract database work for a handful of companies. Nobody pays me to be on call, So the general rule of thumb is if you need something done, give me a few days heads up. Unless someone specifies that something is time sensitive and calls me to ask if I can bump it up, I tackle things in the order they are received. I've been somewhat overwhelmed with the volume of silly little tasks being thrown my way the past few weeks, but I get by on little sleep in the first place, so it's not unusual for me to be cranking out spreadsheets well after 10 p.m. For the most part, everyone is understanding and cooperative, but there's one person, we'll call her Lucy, who is simply not okay with me not responding to and taking care of her requests immediately. She'll send an email, a text after 5 minutes, and then call on repeat until I pick up if there's anything she'd like me to do. I started off with the impression that this was simply someone who's been ignored in the workplace before, and I didn't want to be the person who confirms her concerns, so I spent some time kind of bending over backwards with whatever nonsense Lucy throws my way. About a week ago, Lucy sent me a massive list of unrelated tasks she'd like me to do. This has been her move lately as she tries to cut in line, come up with anything she might want done, and throw it out there at the beginning of the week. I gave Lucy a call to ask about prioritization, as she makes everything out to be urgent. For context, anything being urgent means Lucy isn't doing her job correctly. When I asked what she'd like me to prioritize, Lucy laughed and said, "My email." I explained that I was already neck deep for the next few days, and anything that isn't time sensitive will be taken care of in the order it was received. Lucy didn't like this. She started asking me if I would do it if XYZ coworker had been the one who asked. I told her no, that really has nothing to do with this, and that the reason I'm calling is to make sure anything she actually needs done in a timely manner will get done. She became indignant and threatened to tell the chairman of the organization about how I was ignoring her. Kind of funny, because that's who I was sitting with at the time. Needless to say, I wasn't too concerned about her threat, but this is when I realized her "nobody listens to me" shtick is just a manipulation tactic. Anywho, Lucy explains how little she cares, very little, and that if I can't be bothered to help her now, she wants me to call her whenever I get to each task from her list. I thought she was joking, kind of chuckled, and asked if she really wants phone calls after 10 p.m. She must have thought I was exaggerating or trying to claim I am an incredible worker, because she responded with, "If you think you work harder than me, you're mistaken." Again, chuckled a bit and explained that I'm not necessarily busting my butt in the middle of the night, that just happens to be when some things get done. Went back and forth a bit, but she held her ground on demanding a phone call when I get to each task. Welp, last night around 1 a.m., I get to one of her requests. Lucy wanted me to add someone's middle name to the email platform they use. This couldn't possibly be less trivial. Certainly didn't have any follow-up questions about the task. I went back and forth about calling her, but I couldn't stop thinking about her attitude, belittling me, and most importantly, insisting she gets a phone call no matter what time or how stupid. She answered the phone and said, "Never call me at this time again," and hung up. Deal. Edit. Thank you for all of the kind, funny, and insightful responses. This little gig kind of fell into my lap with a few basic tasks here and there, and I was woefully unprepared to actually be running this like a business. I appreciate all of these suggestions, both business and vengeance related. I hope to turn the tables of which one of us is miserable in short time. Well, at least she could read. So happened about a week ago. I had a meeting at work and was recently promoted, so I decided to wear a collared company shirt I bought a couple years back with slacks and a nice set of professional shoes. My wife had given me a honey pick-up list, so after the meeting I stopped by America's favorite, two-in-every-town store called Fall Dart. Now it was a small list, 3 easily carried items, so I didn't even grab a card or anything. As I'm moving through an aisle to grab the first thing, a sweet little old lady asks for my help reaching something on a top shelf. No problem. She asked nicely. I'm tall, and I don't actually mind helping. My wife will actually see people having issues and volunteer me from time to time. It's all cool. As I hand it to her, she smiles, thanking me. I get tapped on the shoulder, one of those bony nun-fingered types of taps. "Hey, come with me. You need to take care of your employee." Now, mind instantly realized I must look like a manager and a Karen found me. Still, "I'm sorry, ma'am, I don't work here." "I don't care if you're corporate or local. Follow me." Oh, this could be fun. So I follow her, and a couple aisles away is a lady tasked to do shopping for those online orders with 4 partially filled totes. "I can't find my crap, and she won't show me where it is. You need to reprimand this employee." Poor employee tried to keep smiling despite looking so tired and fed up with life in general. Ma'am, I'm sure she's just following the directions of her boss, but I don't work here. It does seem that you need some help though. Do you need my help? As I said that, I pulled down and straightened the chest of my shirt in case of wrinkles and pointed to the slogan under the company crest, helping individuals with disabilities and living independent and fulfilling lives. I really do love helping people and work for a company that works with people with mental and physical disabilities. She glanced down, got a confused look on her face, and looked back up at me, which I had been waiting for. Extending one hand towards her, "Ma'am, do you have staff or family here with you? Are you in need of assistance?" She got red and started making a squeaky choking noise. She then started looking really upset but unsure of what to say. She finally clenched her jaw and just stormed off. I turned, showing my shirt to the actual employee, and wished her a good day as she tried not to laugh. Sadly, I didn't see or hear anything else from the lady the rest of my visit. Entitled parent thinks I owe her kid my stuffed animal. A lot of people in my family have been telling me to give away some of my stuff to my newborn cousins recently, and it sparked a memory in my head about an entitled parent I had the unfortunate circumstance of meeting a couple of years ago. Here's the setting of this story. I was a wee little 8-year-old who obsessed over stuff like stuffed animals and especially Beanie Boos. Back then, I had a giant imagination and constantly played with these guys. They were one of my only forms of entertainment too, since our family didn't have a console back then. Even though it's normal for a kid to love stuffed animals, I was so attached that every time I left home for school, I made sure to get them up and out of bed and give them food. I was a kid. I thought they were alive. When my mom would do laundry on the weekends, I would ask my mom to give them a machine bath so they could be cleaned. One day, my mom decided that we should all go to the library to get some books so we could read over the summer. I was ecstatic because the library was one of my favorite places in the world. I always felt like it was a magical wonderland of sorts because of all the toys and games they had laying around everywhere. This day, I was so hyped that I had gotten out one of my favorite stuffed animals and tucked him in my pocket to take with me. I was planning to play with him there along with the other toys they had in stock. When we had finally arrived, I headed down with my mom to the kids section of the library. She started looking for books that me and my brother could read while I headed over to the mountain of toys. My mom trusted me enough at that point and she had left me alone to play. At the time, I hadn't cared and was just enjoying myself. Apart from myself, there was only one other girl there who looked slightly younger than me and her mom reading a magazine, or a book, I don't remember, on a bench near us. When I took out the stuffed animal from my pocket, all of the commotion started. Cast. We've got me, we've got entitled kid, we've got entitled mom, and we've got my mom. Nothing I'm typing is going to be a direct quote. This was so long ago, and there's no way I could have memorized exactly what was said. So I pull out my stuffed dog. His name is Buster, just to clarify. An entitled kid automatically spots him. She rushes over and snatches him out of my hands. I am shocked. Me. Hey, give that back. It's mine. Entitled kid. No, it's not. It's the library's. Smirks at me. Me. What? No! Buster's mine. Give him back. I bought him from home. At this point, entitled mom notices the argument, but she doesn't do anything about it. I am still fuming, and entitled kid is refusing to give me the stuffed dog back. As an 8-year-old, I never wanted to use violence, as I was a pretty weak person, but I was so outraged that with all of my might, I tried to punch him in the face. It missed, grabbed my stuffed dog, and ran off to find my mom. Note that my punch missed, and I hadn't even gotten rough with them. She had been the one to take Buster out of my hands and started the whole situation. After running for a bit, I found my mom and told her everything while halfway to tears. She was mad, but let it be and decided to head back home. But oh no, it wasn't going to end that easily. We were just about to leave when lo and behold, entitled mom shows up. Entitled mom taps my mom's shoulder. Excuse me? Mom, how can I help you? Your son attacked us and stole our stuffed animal. Mom, what? Oh, you're the person my son told me about. Yes, now hand the dog over and apologize, or I will call the police. Mom, no, your daughter stole my son's stuffed animal and refused to give it back. If anyone should apologize, it should be your daughter. How dare you insult her like that? Grabs my arm. Give the dog back right now, you stupid kid. I cannot handle this and break down. I'm crying and holding onto my stuffed animal as tight as I can. My mom takes entitled mom's hand off me very forcefully and clams me down. At this point, everyone has seen what's going on, and all of them are telling entitled mom to go away. My mom is fuming. Mom, I swear to God, if you ever lay a hand on OP ever again, you'll be down on the ground before you can think. Entitled Mom is stunned, and we walk away without another word. I'm always glad this story has the nice ending it did, but sometimes I worry about what would have happened if I wasn't able to get my stuffed animal from Entitled Kid. The thought scares me though, and now that I'm older, I'll happily give some of my toys away to a kid who does deserve them. No one can use the broom closet. Background. This was about 6 years ago now. At the end of high school, and a couple of years afterwards, I worked at a higher-end grocery store chain in the Midwest. I had worked my way up to the customer service desk position where we sold cigarettes, lotto tickets, high theft risk items like baby formula, and settled coupon disputes and refunds. Quite frankly, I loved my job. All the coworkers got together great, but we had this terrifying HR manager who is the Karen of this story. She sported the classic Karen haircut, very intimidating presence, had a very forced cheeriness, and I believe she had a drinking problem, but that's neither here nor there. She basically was the only storm cloud at this job. Behind the service desk, we had a broom/storage closet. Karen was truly a force to be reckoned with, and everyone feared being in her line of fire. She would nitpick employees on anything she could. Myself and the other service desk employees had taken to using the broom closet to store personal belongings, as it was safer than the break room. Things went missing sometimes. Kids are dumb. When Karen discovered we were storing our bags and lunches there, she made a point to pull us all aside and inform us that this closet was not, under any circumstances, to be used as personal lockers as we have those in the break room, and the stuff is in the way and slows productivity, blah blah blah. Whatever, I'll keep my valuables on me. We all agreed to not store our things in the closet anymore for fear of being written up. Fast forward about a month. I'm going through my shift close duties and get to the part where I sweep the floor behind and around the service desk. I head into the broom closet to retrieve the broom and dustpan, and what am I greeted with? A purse and a grocery bag. Upon further inspection, I realize the purse to be Karen's faux designer purse. You have got to be kidding me. I check the grocery bag tied to it, and it has 10 packs of cigarettes in it. 10. Nobody buys 10 packs of assorted cigarettes, so obviously my snooping does not end there. I check the date codes and find all of the cigarettes are just barely expired and unable to be sold. I'm not sure if it carries over to other places, but in my state, if they're expired, they cannot be sold and must be returned to the proper vendor. Some federal law or something, I don't know, I'm a teenager. I check the receipt in the bag and notice one line of general merchandise at $1, times 10. At my store, we used a general merchandise input with a custom price to charge for items with a damaged barcode and couldn't be scanned into the system. I checked the cashier ID at the top, and who else but the big K-Dog herself. So she sold herself 10 packs of expired cigs at $1 per pack. Mind you, these packs sell for about $8 to $10 per pack normally, not to mention the crime of selling expired ones. That just sounds like stealing, but with extra steps. It's malicious compliance time. So I put everything back the way it was and start sweeping while fuming the entire time, trying to figure out what I'm going to do about this, when my saving grace descends from the heavens. The sweet little front-end manager, who's basically a mom to all the cashiers, strolls over to have a chat and ask how my shift was going. I decide it's now or never. Not fully understanding the gravity of the situation at the time, I go through the small talk for a bit before I just casually lay it on store mom that I saw Karen's purse in the broom closet tied to a bag of cigs and that I thought it was kind of weird. All the while remaining innocent and curious while I wanted to scream about Karen being a thief. To my absolute delight, this comment immediately furrowed store mom's brow and she came around to investigate. She opened the bag of smokes and her eyes went wide when she realized what I had realized only minutes before her. She was obviously upset at this point, but calmly and quietly told me not to mention this to anyone else. I had a crap-eating customer service grin on at this point and agreed. Almost an hour had passed when I see store mom, bag in hand, go upstairs to the conference room, followed with the bigwig corporate's loss prevention guy, followed by a straight-up police officer. Oh my God. At this point, I'm sweating bullets for Karen. I hear Karen get summoned to the conference room over the employee walkie-talkie system. I see her trot up the stairs with a confused look on her face as she glances over at me, still wearing my fake customer service smile. About another hour goes by and my shift is about to end, but you better believe I am not going to miss the end of this. All of a sudden, I hear absolute stomping coming down the steps from the conference room. It's Karen. Her face is red, tears in her eyes, an expression that is the epitome of rage, and she's looking at me, staring into my very soul. Let me tell you what, if looks could kill, I would have been splattered all over the walls of that service desk. She's coming right for me, maintaining eye contact, and at this point, I'm genuinely frightened, but I keep my well-honed customer service mask on and stare right back. She comes behind the desk and stops a few feet from me, just menacingly staring at me. I can basically hear her blood trying to rip from her veins. We both stood there for mere seconds, but it felt like an absolute eternity. She turns, opens the closet, grabs her purse, and leaves the store. That's the last time I saw Karen. She must have even moved away, because this town ain't exactly big enough for the two of us, if you catch my drift. I pestered store mom about what happened, but she didn't want to disclose much information about the situation, but did mention she was at least charged with retail theft and made passing comments about how she would never be able to work in a retail setting again. Nah, good enough for me. The grocery store was a happier place. Please come watch this video next, you will love it. And join as a channel member today and we'll give you a special shout out on our next video. And to have us make any kind of video you'd like us to, just come visit us on Fiverr, link pinned in the comments below.